You know, every time you see a headline about a company's amazing earnings or, well, a shocking financial collapse, you're actually seeing the result of this hidden system. Today, we're going to dive into auditor ethics. It's this invisible code that's supposed to guarantee the numbers we all see are, real. This is basically the bedrock of our entire financial world, so let's see how it's built.
So let's just ask it straight up. When a company says it's worth billions of dollars, how do we really know? What's stopping those numbers from just being, well, a complete work of fiction? The answer is this really fascinating system that's all designed to build trust. And it all kicks off with one single core idea. The whole reason we can have any confidence at all in financial statements, it really boils down to two super important concepts: professional assurance and something called auditor independence. Now, together, these two things form the very foundation of financial trust, so let's break down what they actually mean.
Okay, I know, that first term, assurance engagement, it sounds pretty academic, right? But the idea behind it is actually super simple. Think of it like this. You're hiring a trusted, totally independent expert, that's the auditor, to come in and check a company's financial story. Their whole job is to give a professional opinion that says, yep, this story is reliable, or to raise a big red flag. That's what gives everyone else the confidence to make decisions. And this right here is a brilliant, crucial distinction. Independence of mind is all about what an auditor truly believes on the inside. They have to be genuinely 100% unbiased in their own head. But independence in appearance is just as critical. That means they have to avoid any situation that would make a regular person on the outside think they might be biased. It's not enough to just be fair, you have to look fair too. You absolutely need both. So to get to this level of unbreakable trust, every single auditor is guided by a set of ethical principles. You can almost think of this as their professional code of conduct, or their DNA. These 5 principles are literally the pillars of the whole profession. It all starts with integrity and objectivity, which simply put just means be honest and don't let anything or anyone influence your judgment. Then you've got to have the skills to actually do the job right, that's professional competence and due care. And finally, you have to keep your client's information secret, that's confidentiality, while also upholding the good name of the entire profession through your professional behavior. This is the ideal, what every auditor is aiming for.
But, of course, sticking to those ideals, that's the real challenge. The real world is just full of pressures that can threaten an auditor's independence. The official code actually groups all these pressures into 5 very distinct categories of threats.
Because here's the thing, no matter how strong those principles are, this ideal is constantly under attack. So let's meet the 5 big villains of our story, the 5 threats that every auditor has to learn how to spot and fight back against. First up is the most obvious villain of the bunch, the self-interest threat. This is your classic follow-the-money problem. It's when an auditor's own financial situation or personal interests could end up clouding their professional judgment. For example, owning stock in a company you're auditing? Yeah, that's a huge, clear conflict. But it can be a lot more subtle than that. Imagine if one massive client makes up a giant chunk of your firm's total revenue. You might, think twice before issuing a negative report and risk losing that client. That kind of dependency is a really powerful and really dangerous form of self-interest. Okay, next we have the self-review threat. And the idea here is actually super simple and very human. It is incredibly hard to find mistakes in your own work. You just don't look at it with the same critical, skeptical eye that somebody else would. This is exactly why you're not supposed to grade your own homework, right? If an audit firm helps a company prepare its financial statements, how can that same firm then turn around and objectively audit those very statements? It's a huge problem. And the same danger pops up if someone on your audit team just left a senior job at that client. The lines just get way too blurry. Third on our list is the advocacy threat. This is what happens when an auditor stops being that neutral, impartial referee and starts acting more like a cheerleader for their client. For instance, you just can't be auditing a company while you're also out there promoting its stock to investors. That is a massive conflict of interest. You immediately lose that professional skepticism that is so essential. At the end of the day, you can't be a player on the team and also the impartial judge of the game. Our fourth threat is a really human one: familiarity. Look, after years of working with the same client, it's just natural to build a relationship. But the danger is that you become too sympathetic, maybe a little too trusting, and you're less willing to challenge them. It's that classic problem of not wanting to be tough on a friend. I mean, having a close family member in a top spot at the client, that's a pretty obvious red flag.
But check out that rule on long association. Forcing top auditors to rotate off major clients after 7 years? That's not just corporate bureaucracy. It is a deliberate safeguard. It's designed to break up those relationships before they get too comfortable and compromise that critical, skeptical mindset. And finally, we have the most direct threat of them all, intimidation. This is when an auditor is pressured, and it can be really obvious or super subtle to just look the other way, to back down from a tough decision, or to change their professional opinion. This can be a really blunt threat, like being told flat out, "You'll be fired if you disagree with us." Or it can be more sneaky, like constant pressure to cut corners on the audit just to bring the fee down. And in the worst cases, it could even be a form of blackmail, where a client uses a gift or a favor as leverage. This is where an auditor's integrity is really, truly put to the ultimate test. Okay, so with all of these threats constantly looming, how does the whole system not just fall apart? Well, the answer lies in what are called safeguards. Think of them like a defense mechanism, a set of specific actions and rules designed to either get rid of these threats completely or at least knock them down to a manageable, acceptable level.
But here's maybe the most critical part of this entire code. It actually recognizes that sometimes a threat is just too big. In certain situations, there is no safeguard, no action you can take that can make it okay. And in those moments, the only ethical choice the auditor has is to turn around and walk away from the engagement.
And these are some of those absolute, uncrossable red lines. Auditors can never act as management or serve on the board of a client. You just can't be part of the company you're supposed to be independently checking. The way they get paid is also super rigid. You can't have fees that depend on a good outcome. And even something as simple as a gift is a no-go unless it is completely trivial. These aren't just suggestions, they are the brightest of bright lines. Now, for most of the other threats, the ones that aren't quite so extreme, there are effective safeguards. So to fight a self-review threat, you can use entirely separate teams for the audit work and any advisory work. To counter a familiarity threat, you rotate senior staff off the job, like we saw earlier. You can even bring in a whole other firm to review or even redo part of the work. This system is designed to be this dynamic, active defense. So what does this all add up to? What's the big takeaway? This whole framework of principles and threats and safeguards, it's not just some internal rulebook for accountants. It is the invisible architecture that allows our entire global economy to function. It's what ensures the numbers we all rely on, whether we're investors or employees or just citizens, actually have some basis in reality. And that really brings us to our final question. We've seen the code. It's a powerful framework designed to protect integrity against some pretty immense pressure. But when you've got billions of dollars, careers, and corporate legacies all on the line, is an ethical code, no matter how well designed it is, ever truly enough to guarantee trust? That's something to think about.